These are 5 hair hacks that will change your pixie haircut forever. Over the past 28 years of doing hair professionally, I have worked on tens of thousands of clients. And what I've found is that when I have a client that has a pixie haircut and they come back to the salon and they tell me how many people stopped them on the streets asking them where they got their hair done, how many friends gave them amazing compliments on their new cut, or how incredible they feel in it, I have found 5 common reasons that happens. And those are the things that I'm gonna be sharing with you today. So yeah, let's talk about some pixie hair hacks. Before we dive into the video, I also wanna say a big thank you to Lifen for sponsoring this video, but we'll talk more about the Lifen Swift hairdryer a little bit later. But for now, let's dive into hack number 1. Okay, number 1 is making sure that the sides are tapered in towards the ear. That means that everything below your recession line, when you pull that straight out, it's not all the same length. It gets a little bit shorter as it goes down towards the ear. And there's a couple reasons that this is very important. The first reason is, as the sides grow out, they're going to get fuller. And as the sides get fuller, it's going to inherently give it the illusion that the top is flatter. Because see, that's how hair works, because a lot of it is just an optical illusion. Unless you're getting a lot more volume in the top as it grows out, which for most people, that's not happening, because as it grows, it gets a little bit harder to create more and more and more volume in it. So simply tapering those sides in a little bit towards the bottom, so it's a little bit more angled in, is going to help that grow out a lot, because it's not gonna feel like it gets quite as full right around the bottom on the sides. It's going to get a little bit fuller up through the temple first, because it's growing out even. Now, part 2 to that is that when you cut your hair a little bit tapered on the sides, it's actually going to accentuate volume in the right areas just from the get-go. And that is typically having a little bit less volume around the cheeks and a little bit more volume around the temples. It kind of draws a line that would mimic, if you would, the cheekbone structure on most people. That's huge, because when it does that, it's actually not just making your cheekbones look stronger, but it's lifting the eye up the shape. This lifts your whole face. And I personally have never met anybody that didn't want to have great cheekbones. I just don't think that's a thing. So this does a great job of creating that illusion. So that's 1. Taper those sides in, it'll grow out better, and it'll be more flattering right out of the get-go. Right out of the gate. Number 2 is lightly texturizing the very ends of your hair. Now, as crazy as it sounds, this is something you actually could even do at home. You can just simply take shears like this. Now, if you notice, look at these shears. These are not thinning shears, these are texturizing shears. If you look very closely, you'll see that the hole in between the blades is a little bit larger than the blade itself. Unlike thinning shears, which are right here, where the blade and the hole are the exact same size. When the blade and hole are the same size, you're taking out half of the hair. However, when the blade is smaller than the hole, it means you're taking out less. So they're slightly more forgiving, and this is important. If you just pull your hair up and look at the very ends like this, and you just go over those ends just a couple times very quickly, like this, that's a great way of blending out those ends and kind of texturizing that just a bit. And the best part about this is, as long as you don't do this anywhere below, say, an inch of the end, so just the very last inch of your hair, this will do a really good job of blending those ends. It'll do a really good job of giving it a little bit more volume and texture and movement. And if you've ever had a haircut that looked choppy, or it seemed kind of bulky and weird in certain areas and just kind of like these big thick chunks in areas, that could likely be fixed by just texturizing those ends. This also works really well to just lighten your hair up a little bit. Many times if somebody comes in and they say, hey, the top of my hair is laying really flat, it feels like I need to go shorter. Well, in actuality, just texturizing the ends alone can go a long way to lightening that up, but still making it feel like it's got close to the same amount of length that was there, because it might actually need that length to balance with the overall shape. It's kind of a cheat code, if you will. Okay, hack number 3 is non-directional drying. I know some of you are thinking right now, wait a minute, dude, wait. I cut my hair this short so I don't have to spend time drying it. Let me explain and show you what non-directional drying is. Why don't you come with me? We're in the bathroom, I've got my hair wet, and I'm about to walk through the drying process. Now, one of the most important things to me is that I'm using a blow dryer that functions well and mitigates some of the concerns of damage that are associated with using any sort of heat on your hair. And that's one of the reasons that I'm a big fan of Lifen Swift. And I've talked about this multiple times on my channel. This motor runs at 110,000 rounds per minute. And when you compare that to some conventional dryers, in those dryers, you're looking closer to 20 to 40,000 rounds per minute. Now, how does this affect you? Well, it affects you because the faster this motor spins, it means the faster that air is coming out. The faster that air is coming out, the faster and more efficiently it's going to dry your hair. That means it's less time that you are putting your hair under heat or potential damage to get it dry. Now, there are 3 temperatures that the life can use. One of them is the hottest, which is 176 degrees. Then you have a medium heat, which is 122 degrees. And then you have the cool, which is basically room temperature. However, I'm going to be using the hot setting, 176 degrees. I'll take this, I'll turn this on. You can hear that, it's loud, but you also see that I haven't raised my voice a lot. Now, part of that is because the actual blades on this motor, not to geek out too much, but they're actually aircraft aluminum grade to a processing precision of 0.001 millimeters. So I'll take this blow dryer and I'll start by just blow drying it forward, okay? Now, there's 2 things that are going on here. One, I'm moving this blow dryer around a lot while I'm drying it, so I'm not just doing this and holding it in one spot. And 2, I'm starting coming forward, okay? And then I'll go to this side, and then I'll go over to this side, then I'll come down, then I'll come back to this side, back to this side, okay? Now, 1, that's how fast it dries, like that. But also, now that I've gone back and forth, again, what I call non-directional, I can take this and style this to either side and still get control and volume out of it. And I also love the fact that this is so light. At 407 grams, this is shy of a pound in weight. Now, there are attachments that actually are magnetic that you can attach to the end of this dryer. However, for this specific scenario, I actually don't think that you need them. But if you were gonna round brush your hair or something like that, after you got it mainly dry, then you would want to use one of the attachments to control where that heat is delivered. Or if your hair is curly and you wanted just to get a diffused look, then you would obviously want to use the diffuser. It'd be a much better option. If you are curious about these dryers, there is a link in the description below where you can learn more about them. There's a reason that I use this. It's not by accident. That's going to give me the foundation to create a style that I'm going to be much happier with. And this is the same for you. But if you don't dry your hair, essentially what you're doing is you're allowing it to just basically be however it is. And then you're hoping that its natural foundation is gonna give you the shape that you want. And so what you're likely finding is that many times you're kind of fighting that shape a little bit because it doesn't do what you want it to do. On the flip side, if we use non-directional drying, spend 30 seconds to a minute, it'll do whatever you want it to do. Okay, hack number 4 is the M hairline. Let me explain why this sounds ridiculous, but follow me here. If you look at most people's hairlines, okay, your natural hairline is basically shaped like an M. And this is on most folks. Yes, I am fully aware that there are the people out there that don't have this or have different variations of this. Maybe it's less pronounced or in some cases it's more pronounced. Now, the reason that this is important when we talk about shorter haircuts is because that shape of hairline actually does a really good job of elongating the neck from the profile, but also from the profile, it lifts the eye up again and kind of really draws more attention back up the shape and towards the crown, which is really kind of where we want to focus the volume at. Now, when you cut it really square in the back, very blunt, or even if it's soft, but just a straight across the line, it just tends to look not as natural. Now, granted, I know that a lot of people are gonna say, yes, this is an opinion though, just because you don't like it doesn't mean other people don't like it. And that's fair. Some people might like it a little bit more square, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not really speaking about the opinion of whether or not you like it. I'm specifically talking about what it does to your eye and where it draws attention. And that to me, for a lot of people, I think is very important. Even with the shape cut well, it will still bring your eye down more than if you have it cut into an M. Take it for what it's worth, but that's number 4. Okay, hair hack number 5 is using a product, not just a product, the right product, not just a specific right product, the right kind of product. That was a lot, I know, I apologize, so work with me here. So there's kind of 2 camps that I find when we talk about pixies. Camp number 1 is a group of people that, again, cut their hair so short because they're trying to get out of the day-to-day maintenance. I don't want to style my hair, and I definitely don't want to put product in it. Don't like the way the product feels, and I just don't want to deal with that time. But then there's a large group of others who do want the best overall look from their pixie. When I say specific product, I'm speaking of waxes and pomades. Some of you are probably going to be saying, well, let's back up here a second. Why didn't you say a volumizer? And the reason I didn't say volumizer specific is because when we're talking about hairstyles as short as pixie cuts, if the shape is cut into the hair and you style it, meaning you dry it the way that I was just showing you, non-directional, the likelihood of you getting the right amount of volume in the right areas, it may not be as big, but the correct volume in the right areas is pretty high because you only want so much volume in it to begin with, or it starts to kind of take away from the overall feeling of a pixie. A pixie is supposed to have movement and texture and be a little bit tighter to the head than some of the longer shapes. Now we're moving into getting your hair to have more texture, because pixies are very based on movement and texture, so it really sets them apart. So how do you know that you're using the correct pomade and or wax? And that's gonna be different person to person. So I can't share a specific one, but what I will share is kind of a way that I approach how I choose which one is gonna work best for what client. The more greasy, oily, thin in the texture, liquidy that product is, there's a higher probability that that is going to be a little bit more shine and a little bit less control. Then you move into the harder waxes. If it's very stiff to the touch, it's almost like a candle wax, the harder it gets, the likelihood is higher that it's probably going to have a little bit more control and a little bit less shine. Now, there are exceptions to those rules completely. That's painting this with a very broad stroke. Getting one that's kind of in the middle, it's got a little bit of shine and a little bit of control, is a really good way to start, because you don't want it to be so shiny that it just lays your hair limp, and you don't want it to have so much control that you get no shine. So not using any product is a bit like not accessorizing an outfit. You can have a great outfit, hey, it looks phenomenal. But then once you start accessorizing, you start adding all the little things to it, all the little touches, it really makes it so much better. You've got this great cut that's made to have texture and movement and made to be fun, but then you're not giving it the accessories it needs to really show all of that off. All right, before we take off, I want to say a huge thank you to Lifen for sponsoring this video. And again, do not forget, go ahead in the description below. You're gonna find a link where you can learn more about the Lifen Swift. And yeah, you should do that. You should check it out. It's a really solid dryer. Like, that's just honest. And otherwise, I appreciate you hanging out today. I hope you learned something. If you did, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and let your friends know. I come out with a brand new video every week, so join the family, and we will see you next week. There we go. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you next week. Take care now.